Henry VIII, certainly to me as a kid, and now seems to kind of, doesn't he? He's part of the kind of English folklore. He seems to somehow mythical.
He's mythic.
Yes, somehow seems to absolutely be the essence of Englishness to some people. What is that then?
Well, my great teacher at Cambridge, this is moving on to the next stage of my life, maybe the next chapter, but 2 of the autobiography. My great teacher at Cambridge, Geoffrey Ilton, the only thing I can remember of sitting at his feet in umpteen lectures was his comment on the great Holbein portrait of Henry, you know, this one, in which he pointed out that Henry VIII is the only king whose shape you remember.
But
Henry
it's
VIII
true,
is
isn't it?
it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Henry VIII is subliminal.
Yeah.
The Holbein portrait, underneath all the frou-frou of the velvet and the cloth of gold and the ruching and the ostrich feathers and whatever, is cubist geometry. You know. Bodies are trapezium, legs displayed, columns, arms are triangles, attached triangles. Because he's a rugby player, jousting being rugby on horseback, the head and the neck are a continuous cylinder.
Yes.
You know what the rugby player neck looks like,
yes.
and the little hat is the angle. So that goes into the mind. And of course, what Henry VIII did, the 6 wives, it beats Bluebeard. Bluebeard's a bore. With Henry VIII, there is the
and also
immediate...
ran.
and also ran in comparison with Henry. So I think it really... the Tudors are the English Greek myths. They're the Greek myths of the English world.
Elizabeth comes quite close.
Yes, she does. She's the English Virgin Mary.
Yes.
Though I always say it's very important you understand she's a born-again virgin.
Right.
My clever lady friends tell me this is entirely possible. Yes.
Do you ever bother with the various film adaptations that there are? Do you never?
No.
I can't ask you which Elizabeth you thought was best.
No. Not that I particularly disapprove.
No.
But nor do I read the Hilary Mantels of this world. Not because of disapproving, but I just don't see the point.
Yes, I just remember in the Kate Blanchett Elizabeth film, this point is entirely made. She says they don't have a mother anymore. I will become the Virgin Mary. Hence the white makeup. Hence all of this.
Well, and Roy Strong, I mean, who is brilliant on this subject, he points out that there are surviving engravings of Elizabeth I that have been turned into votive objects.
Yes.
They're bordered in paper lace. Yes. They're stained with wax. I mean, clearly candles have been put on either side of them. And I mean, Elizabeth is the moment at which the relationship with the monarch really sublimates itself into some sort of notion of submerging in a larger national identity.
Yes.
If you look under Henry VIII and you look at royal emblems, for example, the use of the Tudor coat of arms or the Tudor badges, if you find those in a country house that's redecorated under Henry VIII, say the best known example, or there are 2 of them, one is Item Moat, a National Trust house, and the other is not open to the public. It's Compton Wynyates of the House of the Marquesses of Northampton. That's built by Henry VIII's Peter Mandelson. That's built by the groom of the stool who wiped Henry's bottom, which I think is exactly the role that one envisages Peter Mandelson as having played. But if you look at both of those houses, they're heavily decorated with portcullises, roses and whatever, because the people involved are intimate royal servants and attendants.
Yes.
By the time you've got to Elizabeth, everybody's house.
Yes.
It's become a statement of national identity. The monarchy has kind of nationalised itself.
Before here recording this, you've just come from the portrait gallery, haven't you? You know, when I was growing up, this was somewhere that meant a huge amount to me, simply because, you know, this amazing Tudor gallery with these
Tudor gallery, which is Roy Strong. We were talking about it. It's his great achievement, and you know, again, it takes you into, I think, so much of the heart of being English. Why do we care about the Tudors? Well, there's yet another reason, because they're the first people that we know what they looked like.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Why you can't get too excited about the Plantagenets, amazing though they are, is because we don't really know what they look like. Whereas with the Tudors, you saw Henry, God, would you recognise him?
Yes,
Elizabeth,
exactly.
would you recognise
Yes,
him?
exactly.
And I think that's a central point. And it's also the dynasty which, again, it is this question of the definition of England. The only other medieval king who has anything like that effect is Henry V. And what is striking is when you look at Churchill, talked about Churchill, when you look at the use that he makes of history. Of course, one of the uses is Henry V and Agincourt and whatever, but above all, it's the few. It's the, as it were, the rerun of the myth of the Spanish Armada.
Yeah.
And very strikingly, the great American historian Garrett Mattingly was inspired by the Battle of Britain to write what I think is one of the very greatest history books of the 16th century, his account of the Spanish Armada. And it's these myths that come back time. And when we want to talk about a summit conference, it's the field of cloth of gold.
Yes,
there is this, it's as though the Tudors, who again, remember, have a totally modern appetite for fame, a totally modern flair for publicity, are also living and using and manipulating a media revolution, the bigger media revolution than even this stuff, the revolution of print. So there are these wonderful echoes that go across 500 years.